Are you in need of a really good realtor? Are you getting ready to sell a home? Are you getting ready to purchase a home? If so, you're going to want to watch today's episode because we're going to dissect what makes an excellent real estate agent, one that you would want to hire. Hi, I'm Jonas Helbert, team lead, broker owner, Streetlight Realty, and I welcome you to yet another episode of the Miami Valley Experience. And today we're going to be going over what makes up a great real estate agent. Now, we all know what we want in a real estate agent, but how do you make sure that's what you're actually going to be receiving on the other end? There's a couple of things that immediately come to mind that I would be asking any real estate agent that I end up working with. If I'm looking to list my home, I know one of the first things I'm interested in is what is our agreement if I would like to cancel. If they have some really weird or bizarre cancellation type of fee or a broken contract clause, if you will, that could be a red flag of things that may not go very well for you down the road. If they need to protect that contract so much, what are they afraid of? Is a buyer's agent going to make you sign an exclusive right to represent contract? Is there going to be a penalty if you end up breaking that? What are those penalties and why are they charging them? What if they're not a good fit for you? Is there anything that protects you in those contracts that would allow you to back out of the deal? We are going to explore the many things that make up a great real estate agent and contrast them to an agent who's maybe not quite there yet, needs a little bit of education, training, retooling, whatever the case may be. A bad real estate agent is just going to display certain characteristics. So let's kind of go over them. One of the most reoccurring issues that we deal with or hear about when we are taking on new clients that had previously worked with someone else, the number one thing, by and large, is always communication. Is your listing agent not communicating with you? Is your buyer's agent not communicating with you? You know, these are things that are relatively important. You don't hear from a listing agent for 2-3 weeks. They call you out of the blue. Hey, Sally. Hey, Joe. We need to do a price reduction of $15,000 to $20,000. Why? I thought you said this is what we should list the property at. Without communication, scenarios like that don't play out very well. Hey, or on the buyer's end, you reach out to your buyer's agent and you say, hey, I want to go check out this property, and lo and behold, that property's already pending. Your real estate agent, the person you're paying to help you find a home, didn't present a property to you. Now, there could be a bunch of different reasons as to why that may be the case, but if this is happening time after time after time, maybe it speaks more about the real estate agent than it does the market. For sellers and buyers alike, lack of communication will build up pent-up frustration and anger and even confusion as to what's going on in the process. Great real estate agents don't communicate poorly. They try to reach out, if not every single day, at least a few times a week, just to clue you in to what may be going on with the market, your property, your situation, the deal. It doesn't matter which part of the process you're in. The point is, a good real estate agent isn't going to let you down when it comes to communication. So you want to make sure that your real estate agent that you're about to hire has a crystal clear communication policy that you're going to be able to hold them accountable to. And if they don't, you should be able to break that contract they may have you sign. For instance, if you have a listing, you're selling your home, and your real estate agent isn't communicating with you on a weekly basis, several times a week, just to let you know what the competition's doing, what the market's doing, what the feedback is on your property, the lack of feedback. If they aren't reaching out to you and explaining these things, there should be kind of a strikeout system. How many times is appropriate for your agent to not communicate with you in a given week? Is 4 days acceptable? Is 5 days? That's an entire business week. So those are things you need to be asking on the communication front with your listing agent. When it comes to the buyer's agent, you want to know, are you going to be showing me every property? Am I expected to be bringing you properties? Do you have access to off-market properties? Are we going to be having conversations with that? Are you going to keep me in the loop with what is going on in the lending world? If I need to go see a property, are you going to effectively communicate to make sure that I can at least get in the same day, if not the next? If your real estate agent tells you some of these things are unreasonable or very high expectations, I wouldn't disagree. It may mean they can't meet up to those standards. It's not unreasonable to ask for constant and consistent communication from your realtor. It's not unreasonable to want to hear from your realtor, to want to see a property the same day. If it's late in the day, maybe you want to see it in the afternoon. Communication is key. You can miss deadlines, you can miss properties, miss important feedback, not notice a shift in the market. There's a lot of things that can happen with miscommunication. So there's just no room for error on that. It needs to be clear. What are the communication expectations from the agent to you? After all, they're expecting you to fulfill your end of the deal. They're requiring you to either list exclusively with them or to only see houses exclusively with them. And both of those things are totally fine. It could be okay to have a cancellation clause. Maybe you change your mind and you no longer want to buy, and that realtor has spent weeks looking for homes with you. Maybe on a listing agreement, you've decided, hey, we're no longer going to move, but the agent maybe has already spent a third of the marketing budget towards your property. So some of these fees and expenses and cancellation clauses that are in these contracts aren't in themselves a terrible thing to see or a necessary red flag. But if they have no expectations on their end, that's when you start having an issue. And it all starts with the communication. So be clear with your agent, whether you're buying or selling, what it is that they plan to do to make sure they're communicating with you. And if something isn't jiving well on that front, it needs to be addressed, or maybe they need to let you move on. So communication is not only key between you and your real estate agent, it's also key that your real estate agent is going to communicate effectively with other agents, the other side, the cooperative, and when you enter into a deal. There's a buy side and there's a sell side. And oftentimes you're going to be on one end and so is your agent, and there's going to be another agent and another client. And it's going to be important that your agent responds effectively, quickly, and concisely. From when they receive offers, to presenting offers, to reaching out to agents so they can get a better understanding with a particular property that you're interested in. For sellers, if they get an offer from a buyer, are they going to be reaching out to you and letting you know, hey, this is what we have in hand? Or are they going to hold on to that for several hours and you may not even catch wind of it, which can upset and frustrate a buyer's agent or even a buyer and cause them to walk away before you've even had an opportunity to look? Or what about a buyer's agent who doesn't reach out to a listing agent to let them know that an offer's coming their way? Maybe by the time they know that you're going to be wanting to write an offer as a buyer, a buyer's agent could reach out to a listing agent, see if there's any offers on the table, see if they're going to be disclosing and discussing any offers with their client, and if so, how soon do they need to get an offer in? Believe it or not, there's a lot of times when a buyer's agent may sit tight on that kind of information, and come the end of the day when they're done showing properties, now they're trying to get offers together and write, but by that time it's just too late. These are the inner workings you don't necessarily see from a client side, right? You just get the text from your agent, hey, sorry, meant to tell you there's been an offer accepted on that property. They may not go into details that, hey, had they have followed up sooner, maybe they would have had a shot. Things like that happen, and I get it. Mistakes can happen. Agents are human. Accidents happen. But if this is something that's consistently happening, It's something that would probably want to be addressed by any buyer or seller. So you got to be astute, keen to your senses, and make sure that their lack of communication hasn't spilled over and affected a deal that you're trying to actively have them work on your behalf. This next point kind of goes hand in hand with communication, but it's availability. Is your listing agent available to take calls? Is your listing agent available to go show a property to a sign call or an unrepresented buyer? Or maybe a buyer's agent's having a really difficult day and they would like to go see a property. And you happen to be the listing agent, but they can't quite get to it and they ask for your assistance. Did you know it's actually quite common for a listing agent saying, no, I won't show that property? Does that sound like a good or an excellent real estate agent to you? You got to remember, a listing agent's core fiduciary responsibility is to put and represent your house in the best light possible. So if they're unwilling or unwanting or always unavailable to list and show your property, which you've hired them to do, maybe it's time to have that conversation. Now, the hard part is, as a seller, you may not even be aware of this information and it may never come to light for you. By the time that buyer is ready or that buyer's agent's ready to show their buyer the home, what it may end up happening is the buyer finds another home and they write on that one instead of yours. It happens. It just doesn't get disclosed. It doesn't get out there. Again, these are the small little inner workings that someone who has a great personality but fails on the operations side of real estate is able to easily conceal and hide from their client. So again, you need to do your due diligence and make sure the agent who's going to represent you doesn't fail you time and time again due to lack of communication or availability. Setting aside an agent's availability and communication is an agent's knowledge and ability to get a deal closed. There's been several times where we've been working a deal and an agent on the other side believed something to be true that wasn't. And it's not always just the cooperating real estate agent who needs a re-education or a retooling of knowledge. It can happen on a lender standpoint. Maybe a lender misunderstands a guideline and they're about to cancel or decline a loan application based off misinformation or a lack of understanding of policy. So it's really important that your real estate agent knows the ins and outs of the deal. I remember when I got started in this business, I started off as a loan officer. I was not a real estate agent, I was a loan officer. So I come from the finance number side. I don't know how many times as a loan officer and as a brand new realtor, I would hear an agent say, well, I'm not a loan officer, I don't need to know that. How far from the truth could that be? The two most important parts of the deal are the financing and the property. You have to be able to coordinate both and have a firm understanding of both. You don't have to be an expert in financing, but you need to know enough when you're being misled by a lender or a buyer's agent because their client's about to fail or be declined for their loan. As a listing agent, you need to be aware enough of the loan process to understand when there's some red flags that need addressed. A buyer's agent, a buyer, a loan officer has no problem getting in an extension on a property when they're 90% sure it's not going to work out. But hey, throw a little bit of mud on the wall, see what sticks. If you're a really good listing agent and you know enough about loans and mortgages and some of the guidelines and how all that works, you can start probing and you can start asking questions. And then if you're really concerned, you can start calling people out and saying, that doesn't really make sense to me. Can you re-explain that to me? Because my understanding of this is this. Or knowing enough that, hey, that sounds a little fishy. I'm going to go call my loan officer, run that scenario by them, and see if that makes sense to them. We'll be back in touch with you. So armed with just a little bit of knowledge, and you'll go a long way in negotiating for your client as a listing agent. As a buyer's agent, being able to call a listing agent and dispel any misinformation about certain loan types. For whatever reason, there are agents who would not want to deal with a VA loan or an FHA loan or a USDA loan, even if the house was brand new construction. They think the inspection process is just too rigorous. And it's not true. It's misinformation. They don't understand. They think a VA loan's not a highly qualified individual. Doesn't make any sense. There's no data to support that. But they get these myths and theories about what's good and what's bad, and they just stick with them without doing any research themselves. And it can cost you, a seller and a buyer, a deal because you don't understand the product that is being brought to the table. So if your agent tells you it's not their job to understand how lending works, there's a good chance you probably need to go find another agent, because lending's half the battle in this when you're trying to bring a deal together, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side. So it's extremely important that you at least have a very basic understanding and know when there might be a red flag. Having an experienced agent doesn't only help when it comes to looking at the finances of a buyer, whether it's from the purchasing standpoint or from the selling standpoint. Education comes in a lot of forms, and one of the best ways to display an agent's skill is when they're able to identify things during a walkthrough that might save you a headache in an inspection. Just a real general example, it's the one I give out every single time. There's a brand known as Federal Pacific. It's an electrical panel, and they are known fire hazards. Anytime I ever see one, I point it out before we ever get to the inspection period. There might be a model or two that isn't defective and doesn't need replaced, but I can't think of a single deal when a home inspector didn't bring it up when I've seen one in a home. And the reason why that can be important, that could be an $1,800, $2,400 fix to get that swapped out with an up-to-code panel. What if the seller's not willing to do that? You just spent $500, $600, $700 on a home inspection on something that could have been seen during a home walkthrough and pointed out right away, save the buyer some time and money, save the seller some aggravation. They may not have the funds. They may not care. They may not want to make the replacement. That's just one example during the home inspection where a little bit of knowledge goes a long way, can save quite a bit of headache for a buyer. Now again, I'm not saying the realtor you pick needs to be a general contractor or a code inspector or anything like that, but just some basic knowledge, right? If you've sold enough houses, you know Federal Pacific is not a good electrical panel. Ask any reputable real estate agent and they'll go, oh yeah, of course, yeah, you don't want that. Yeah, that's definitely going to come up. That's how that conversation is going to go. So if your agent doesn't know those types of things, it could cost you in the long run, because that's something you could address before you even get under contract. Another common trait of what a great real estate agent is going to be able to do for you is actually understand and be able to break down the market for you. And what I mean is, when you go to list your home, is the listing agent setting up a realistic expectation of what you can get for the property? Believe it or not, there's some listing agents out there who will list anything at any price just to get the listing and try to work the price down over time once they already have a client under contract for 6 months or a year, maybe longer. Is that the kind of real estate agent you want to work with? Or would you like to work with a professional who is a skilled, excellent real estate agent who's going to let you know, hey, yeah, we can list at this price, but just to let you know, based off my findings, I think it's more realistic that we might be priced somewhere in this range, in that we may be able to get it under contract, but let's prepare to have to renegotiate if there's a short appraisal. Ultimately, it's your choice. It's your home. You should be able to decide what price it is. But you also shouldn't be misled into believing something that's not true. Every real estate agent's going to want to sell a home for as much as possible. That's just the nature of the beast. It's good marketing. Of course they want that, but it may not always be realistic. So working with someone who's going to be honest and upfront with you, super important. Same thing on the buy side. If your real estate agent isn't going to let you know a home's overpriced and that you're going to be facing a short appraisal situation or the possibility of one, are they really doing what's in your best interest? Again, you'll spend $400 to $500, maybe $600 on a home inspection. You'll spend an equal amount on an appraisal. Maybe you've already started lining up some other things. Time, money, again, could be wasted because you have no idea you're about to walk into a situation with a short appraisal, and maybe that seller's not willing to budge. They don't buy the value that you're selling. They want what they want. It happens. So again, it's super important that when you hire your real estate agent, they have a firm understanding of market conditions, and are able to keep you up to date if things were to change mid-listing, mid-purchase, whatever the case may be. They need to know what's going on. So just to quickly recap, so far we're talking about communication, we're talking about availability, knowledge. The other part, the last thing that I would like to talk about that makes up a really good real estate agent and something you need to make sure you're prepared to have a conversation about is overall service. In my opinion, a really good real estate agent doesn't just communicate well, they're not just available, but they're actually truly providing you a service. If you're a seller, making sure that you've got your utilities wrapped up, making sure that the buyer is transitioning, making sure they have an after close process to make sure that your transaction went through smoothly. Are they going to keep the documents for you up to 3 years, at least in the state of Ohio? You know, are they going to do the things above and beyond what's expected? A small little thing we do for our buyer clients, we simply provide a list of all utilities. That's gas, electric, cable, other convenient services that you may get hooked up, internet, satellite, whatever the case may be. We try to make sure you don't have to go scrambling to find everyone's phone number on the internet. Yeah, I know it's not that much work, but if we can conveniently have that placed for you, that's just one thing that's off your plate that you don't have to worry about. You know, that service goes into the administrative part of the transaction. Is your realtor going to take the time to make sure that any credits owed, payments from seller to buyer, buyer to seller, whatever the case may be, are they actually verifying those? Are they double checking them? Believe it or not, banks miss out on things, title companies miss out on things, agents don't turn things into title companies or mortgage companies, which makes them miss things. So it's not even an error on their part. It's something that the realtors, either collectively or separately, one of them may have forgotten. You know, are they going to review those things for you to make sure that you're not stuck, not getting some funds in return? You know, service goes a long way, and it's above and beyond experience that you're looking for, and every buyer and seller truly deserves. So when you're interviewing your agent, ask them the hard-hitting questions. Well, what is it I got to do to get out? Are you going to let me out of this deal if you don't provide the level of service you're promising me today? No. Okay. Why not? Are you worried that you're not going to provide those services? Is that just something you're saying to get my business now? So again, it can be a little uncomfortable, but it's important because you're going to be dealing with this person for at least 30 to 45 days once you've found or listed the property and gotten it under contract. Not to mention all the time searching. Not to mention the times you're going to be sitting on the market as a seller. To quickly recap the entire scenario here, we're talking about communication, availability, knowledge, overall customer service, the white glove treatment. Is your agent going to provide all of that for you? And are they going to address it if they aren't? Or are they going to address it if they aren't meeting up to those expectations that were promised to you during the interview process? Again, I'm Jonas Helbert with Streetlight Realty. If there's anything we can do for you, we do serve the entire Miami Valley from Springfield to Cincinnati. So please reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to help and can't wait to meet you.